was walking with a holler girl, caught in a lowland town. She got a rodeo Romeo, wanting her to settle down. But she won't give her heart to anyone. She'd rather run, baby, run to the sun. Run, baby, run to her freedom. Run, baby, run before the sun goes down on the other side of town. It was a hard time living, growing up without a dime. Every day was just the same, cause daddy was a villain and our mama didn't have no time. She was destined for a life of shame. She won't let the rain come in again. She'd rather run, baby, run to the sun. Run, baby, run to her freedom. Run, baby, run before the sun goes down. He waits, it's too late. He thought he got her like a puppet on a string, but she faked her fate so they won't come looking when she's gone. Run, baby, run to the sun. Run, baby, run to her freedom. Run, baby, run before the sun goes down. Baby, run to the sun. Run, baby, run to her freedom. Run, baby, run before the sun goes down on the other side of town. On the other side of town. La, da, 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 da. La, da, 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 da. On the other side of town.
This tree began growing when you were just a boy, a Revolutionary War hero up the river from Mount Vernon. Dip your feet in the Potomac, a road will run right through this house. They're gonna put a train right through here after you are dead. The trees that your slaves planted stand tall from whence they came. Your sons will choose the wrong side of history. Centuries later, people doing the same. Stomp, stomp, clash, voices crack. Don't they know where they came from? Stomp, stomp, clash, voices crack. Don't they know where they came from? Well, there's no whistle in the wind as I wonder about the length of time it takes for bones to decompose, how every person has to die. And if that guy can do it, so can I. If that guy can do it, so can I. Well, I'm still alive. I'd like to hear your story. Well, I'm still alive. I'd like to read your story. Well, I'm still alive. I'd like to tell your story. Well, I'm voices crack. Don't they know where they came from? Stomp, stomp, clash, voices crack. Don't they know where they came from?
Something about today makes you feel like you're going downhill. Plane's getting low, but you feel like you're standing still. So you go home, watch a movie, and go to bed. Doesn't mean you're okay if there's nothing inside your head. Something about tonight makes you feel like you're going crazy. Stars shining bright, they don't know what you've been going through lately. So you wake up.
Hello, how's everyone doing? Jerry Saltbaum, how are you doing? Yes, photos, many photos. I went through them all last night and picked out a pretty good group, I think. It's probably gonna take a while, so we'll get started here in just a minute. We'll see if any other folks come in. And while I'm doing that, I wanted to check one other thing. So how was everyone's weekend? We had some storm damage. Hey, what's going on, Kim? How are you doing? We had some storm damage Friday night from some pretty severe storms that came through. I think maybe it was even a tornado, but it's hard to tell. But we had 2 trees come down and multiple, well, not full trees, I guess. 2 big branches of trees come down. And then one of the windows in our attic actually blew in. The frame was already in rough shape, but yeah. Whoops. All right, I'm just doing one thing here. Got to figure out where the thing is. And that one. All right. No, she was in the Caribbean. She was on her trip. Although we did meet a Kim in the Caribbean as well. There was a Kim that was one of our taxi drivers. All right. So, with that fixed, let me get back to the slideshow here and we'll get started. All right. So, I've got like, I want to say 500 some pictures to go through, so it'll take a while. All right. So let's get started. Yeah, Kim was on the trip with us. She'll probably recognize some of these pictures. But we will see. All right. So Showed you guys this last time if you were here. This was our view from our Airbnb. So the first couple days we spent at an Airbnb just to kind of get settled before our boat was ready. And this was the site when we pulled in. There's this huge cruise ship in the port. This over here to the left is the shopping district, which I'll have some pictures of in a little while. But cool view, looked great at night. Hey, hi-fi. How are you doing? Thank you for the sub. 21 months. That's crazy. And here's our group. So there's Kim right there in the middle. And then we have me and Heather, obviously, and the other folks, Todd, Jody. Yes, we're now going to call Hi-Fi Jody. Todd, Jennifer, Kristen, Pat, and then Rob and Laura. And this was our pool at the Airbnb. It was pretty cool. Obviously, we're up on a hill here, and then we got this cool little pool, nice area to lounge. We didn't spend a ton of time there, but a little bit. Okay. So this picture is of our first. So our first day there, we rented some ATVs and went tooling around the island. And this was our first stop. It was a beach. And as we pulled up and we're walking up, this guy was just opening. I'm not sure exactly what he sold, but just a little merchant, selling stuff by the beach. And here's a picture of said beach. It's pretty nice. There's a really nice hotel. I don't know if it's a hotel, but definitely a bar and area where you can have some drinks and some food. Definitely a restaurant. And then these chairs with umbrellas. So that was our first stop. This is actually our second beach we stopped at on our little tour. So this picture is actually taken from where we had lunch. So we were sitting right here, got to look out at the beach, the beautiful ocean. It had this really cool carving at the restaurant. This was made out of wood. So pretty cool. And then we traveled on to a third beach. This one was a little rockier. And although the picture doesn't show it, this was the topless beach. So there were a couple of topless folk there, which isn't uncommon. This was on the French side of the island. So obviously more of a French culture. Here's a cool coral we found on the beach. This one obviously was dead, but still pretty cool. Yes, I was topless. It's crazy. Going wild. How did that go? So this is a picture at the beach of that one. At that beach, there were some really cool rocks. And the tide was up, so the water was pretty much all the way up to where the... Hey, speaking of Mod Father, how you doing, Mod Father? Welcome, welcome. So yeah, the water was coming up, and so I wanted to sit on the rock and pose for my pictures for the C-Dub swimsuit calendar that will be coming out in 2024. A little sneak preview, if you will. Oh, geez, we won't tell. Oh, it's only going to get worse, Mod Father. This is a view from above, so you can kind of see, like I said, there were some big rocks on the beach, and the water was coming all the way up here to where the wall was. So definitely high tide. But really gorgeous beach. Oh my goodness. Well, it's for art. So this is the fourth beach we went to. This one was pretty treacherous to get down to, so not all of us made the trip. Basically, the stairs end right one step below where I'm standing right here. No, we don't, for multiple reasons. So you actually had to either jump to this rock, which wasn't totally stable, or go down to the side. So like I said, not everyone came with us on this one. But if you did, it was very much worth it because there was this huge cavern that we got to go to. And so this was a very cool view, looking out at the ocean. And there were actually a couple guys down here. I think it's pretty well traveled. There was a guy just hanging out, and then there was a naked guy smoking a blunt. So Modfather, maybe you'd know something about that, but I wasn't sure what his deal was. But he was very nice. He was respectful. Is it a holiday? I don't know. And just to give you some sense of scale on how big that cavern is, here's a picture with the folks that made the trek down. So pretty big cavern. I'm sure it'd be cool to make a little fire and do a little romantic dinner down there or something. So like I said last time, a lot of the places we went to had license plates from various states up or flags from different countries, things like that. So we tried to get pictures of all the Wisconsin ones, and here's one we saw this was just at another little shack, kind of like the one I showed in that earlier picture, but this one was a bar and sold drinks. And they had, here's London with another Wisconsin one. And they were just at the top of this, the beach we were just looking at. And they sold this, and they sold, I think some headwear, maybe some jewelry, stuff like that. Hey, Breddington, how you doing? So that was cool. And then we ended the night with a little bit of guitar playing. Just wanted to give sort of a different angle of our Airbnb. So that picture from the beginning was taken out of this opening, this window. We have the huge dining room table here. This is all open air. There are big shutters you can bring down for hurricane season or whatever. But obviously we didn't have to do that. And my guitar made a very good trip to the Caribbean. Got a little bit sandy, I guess, but no other damage, and it still sounded good. Or no real damage, and it still sounds good. Here's a picture of the view at night with all the lights. This is where the cruise ship was earlier, just to give you an idea of where we're looking. So then the next day, so that was sort of day one after we got there. Yeah, United might. American didn't. They did a very good job with the, I gate checked it every leg, meaning I handed it to somebody who then put it down in the cargo hold instead of it just going through the whole system. And they did a very good job. I also added some additional padding to my case and things like that. Yes, if you fold the guitar in half, it does fit better, but it doesn't sound as good. So that was our first day riding around the ATVs. Had a fun time. The second day we went to the shopping district that was really nearby to our Airbnb. This is a picture of a staircase there. One of the interesting things we learned, I don't know how true it is, but we were told, because a lot of these buildings would have rebar sticking out. So what we were told, and again, I don't know if it's true, is that they'll do that because they want to put a second story on eventually, and you can't tie into the concrete below if it's already set. So they just leave rebar up there so that it can tie into the floor below it. So like here you can see there's a bunch. But these cool stairs with the little I Left My Heart in St. Martin. Nice little photo op there. And then we went to a lunch at this little French place right on the beach with our buddy Jimmy. He was cool. Nice bartender, fun guy. We talked to him for a little while. He had some suggestions for places for us to check out and all that stuff. No, OSHA's not big in the Caribbean for whatever reason. One other thing we saw all around St. Martin was a lot of cool murals. So this is just one example, but there were a lot of them talking similar to that other one, I Left My Heart in St. Martin. Other ones talking about love and loving St. Martin, things like that. So that was really cool to see. I'm not sure if they're commissioned or if people just do them or what the story is there, but it was pretty cool to see as we were driving around. So we did some shopping, and then that night we went to a dinner at a restaurant, again, on a beach. And they had fire, so I had to do my I Made Fire pose. Wilson is behind me there. I wanted to keep him away from the fire so he didn't get burned. But I did have my trusty volleyball head right there with me. And then they had their tree lit up really cool, so I tried to get a picture of that. Not a great picture, but it looked cool. So that was day 2 on St. Martin. And then day 3, this is the day we actually get on the boat. But before we went on the boat, we took a little tour of a rum distillery. Toppers is the name of it. Really highly rated, like one of the best ones in the Caribbean. These are all their awards they've won. And I think I mentioned this last time, but it was started by a woman. She still runs it. She still does day-to-day operations of it. She liked rum and liked the idea of infusing rum with different flavors, and so she started playing with that. Oh, yeah, we did see the low-flying jets over Maho Beach. Yes. I did not get a good picture of that, but we did see it. So we did their tour, and they talked about the history and how rum came to be. It was, classic alcohol story that it was originally left over from making molasses, I believe. And so it got left behind in the fields, and it got left in the hot Caribbean sun and fermented. And they're like, oh, hey, look, this can make you drunk. And so then they started drinking it. And it was even like official rations for soldiers. You'd get, I don't remember how much it was, like 1.5 liters of rum a day or something like that, 500 milliliters. 1.5 liters is quite a bit. And so then they told the story of Admiral Nelson, who was this famous admiral in the British Navy, and he died in a battle. And in order to get him back, they, it was the 1600s or whatever, so it's not like they could put him in the refrigerator while they sailed back to England. And so what they did was they pickled him. They put him in a rum cask and took him back that way. But come to find out, they weren't very smart about it, because they put the cask in with all the other rum, And so as the days went on and they were running out of rum, somebody decided to open Admiral Nelson's barrel, and they drank that. So for a while, rum was called Nelson's Blood, because that's basically what they were drinking. Pretty gross if you think about it, but the alcohol will kill any of the germs. Right, Breddington? It's not a bad way to go out. And yes, high five. That's the reason they gave rum as a ration, is because they didn't always have safe drinking water. So with it being distilled, it would theoretically be safe. And here we are on the tour where this is actually the kitchen where they work on infusing their specialty flavors. It's all very small. They have a bigger location where they do like the big bottling and everything. But in this area, they actually do work on small batch runs and new flavors. So it is a working kitchen when the tours aren't happening. And so what we did was we had our cook here, who was also on the tour, made us some food, or handed out some food that was already made in some cases. And then our bartender here handed out shots. And we got to try a bunch of the different flavors and see how they went with the various flavors of rum. My favorite was the peach habanero. It was really good. Not too spicy, but a good spice to it. And then the peach just gave it that nice sweetness. I was going to bring back a bottle, but they actually didn't have any made at the moment while we were there, so I couldn't buy any. I guess that's just a reason I'll have to go back. And then they showed us where they actually bottle the rum, and Heather actually bottled this. All she had to do was push a button, and it automatically filled up the bottles, but still pretty cool. And, put the tops on them, and they were ready to go. And then one of the things that I mentioned last time when I did the shorter talk on this is all of the islands have problems with invasive species. A lot of them have invasive iguana species, including St. Martin. And so this is one of the bigger ones we saw that I was able to get a picture of. The rumor was that they actually would kill them and cut the meat up and put it in soup, iguana soup. I don't know if that's true or not either, but that's what they said. They also said some of the islands, they don't do soup, they do more of a stew. So if you want iguana stew or iguana soup, head down to the Caribbean. So after the tour, the rum tour, we got to finally go and get on our boat. So here's the boat from the back. It's a 50-foot catamaran with 2 sails and 2 55 horsepower diesel inboard engines. It's called the Sawdaddy. This was our cabin over here on the port side, which is left. And I'll have some more pictures about how that looked, but it's a very small cabin. And then the rest of the cabins were just on the sides here. And this back here is sort of our dining area. And then in there is the kitchen and another little lounging area. But it was so hot most of the time, we weren't in there very much. Sometimes the captain and the first mate would be in there. But even then, it was, Connor, our first mate and chef, had to be in there to cook meals. But most of the time, everyone was outside because you wanted to get some breeze. So we got a nice little welcome. And our captain's name was Pacome. He was French, but actually born in Kenya and has lived in a number of places, including now the Caribbean. He's been sailing on a boat since I think he said 3. So he's been on boats all his life. He's been doing charters for the last 5 years in the Caribbean, and he's been a captain of a charter now for a year. Although this was only his second trip with the company we went through, Tradewinds. Here's another shot of the sort of kitchen and lounging area. Kitchen's over here to the left more. There was a couple of gas burners. There are a couple of refrigerated shelves in here. I think a fridge and a freezer. Storage over here. There's storage all along the sides. There's even storage on the floor that they can tap into. So a lot of little cubbies to put everything that you need to run a boat for an extended period of time. Then we got to go out onto the front of the boat. So this is on the front of the boat looking back there. These windows go into the area that the last picture was from. This was a nice little place to hang out because we had a couple of mats. There's more on the other side here, some bean bags, and then the trampoline or this netting in front where you could just kind of sit and hang out. Here's the mast, and the mainsail goes up here. The front sail comes down here. We didn't use the mainsail a whole lot. Oh, yeah, rum storage. So, Hi-Fi, this whole cabinet was liquor, including rum. And some really good vodka from France. Ferret vodka, it was called. So yeah, here's our door, our hatch into the room we had. It was shaded or tinted, so it wasn't full sun, but there's also a shade you could zip up so that it covered a little bit. And that helped with the heat, especially if the sun was beating down on us most of the day. It would warm the room up. And here's the look going down the stairs. So as you can see, there's not a lot of space there. It's basically enough for one person to stand if they want to move around, or 2 people to stand if neither one of them want to move. The bathroom is to the left here in this door. And I mentioned this last time, but the bathroom was a toilet, and then the area where you put your feet when you're sitting on the toilet was the shower floor, and the shower head was just to your left. Oh, some Mocha Mama. That was my favorite kind. Well, that was my favorite of the standard flavors. My favorite specialized flavor was that peach habanero, but the mocha was really good in your coffee. And then a bed. It was a queen size bed, so it was big enough for me to lay down and not have to hit my feet on the side or anything. But to get in and out, this is the only way to get in and out. So if Heather was sleeping over here, so if she had to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night, she basically had to crawl over me and then crawl back over me to lay down. So tight quarters for sure, but it didn't really matter a whole lot because we weren't really in there very often, other than sleeping at night and sometimes trying to shower in the evening especially if we were going somewhere off the boat. There really wasn't a whole lot of time we were just down there hanging out. Anytime we were hanging out, we were above deck somewhere. So then we went, after we got on the boat, we spent one night in the harbor in St. Martin, and then the next morning we left and went to our first island of Sabah. And this is it's a pretty small island. Not a lot of people live there, and so there's only one port. And what our captain discovered shortly after we got there is that the one port is kind of sketch. So there were some reports of people getting robbed, people pulling out weapons, things like that. And so Pacome originally was like, well, it's no problem. I'll bring my I'll bring my knife. But cooler heads prevailed, and we decided not to go on land here. So this was the only island we went to that we didn't get to go on land and do at least a little exploring. But as you can see, I mean, it does look kind of run down even from a distance. I guess it's much nicer once you get sort of over this little hill here and into the main area, but you have to go through this area to get there. And like I said, it's the only dock, so there's not a lot of other places to go. The trip over here was by far the roughest sail we had. And it was the only one where I got seasick. And I got seasick basically right where this picture was taken. And I leaned over so hard when I was throwing up that I got bruises on my stomach from this cord. And so they stayed with me for the full 2 weeks, which is pretty impressive. We called it the vomitometer to measure how rough the seas had been. So we ended up spending the day anchored not too far off of Sabah, and did some swimming, had some fun, just got a chance to kind of get used to being on the boat and everything like that. And then the next day we went to St. Kitts, and I think St. Kitts was probably my favorite island. So on St. Kitts, Pacome hooked us up with a tour guide who ended up taking us around the entire island pretty much. Showed us a lot of cool stuff, taught us a lot of history. Yes, the Bruise Cruise, right? The Bruise Cruise vomitometer. Our cab driver taught us a lot of things about the island and the history, and we got to see some cool monuments and other somewhat touristy attractions, but some not as much. And then we ended the day at a really cool restaurant that there's no way we would have found without having a cool tour guide. So here we are pulling in. So the first day we got there, we anchored and swam for a little while. Introduce the crew now. So this is Connor. He was like I said, he was our first mate and chef. He was an amazing chef. He used to work, he's from South Africa, and he used to work in a 7-star restaurant there. I guess they have so many good restaurants, they needed to add a couple stars. But he's just top of the line chef. And, I'm a pretty basic guy myself. I've never really had food that's been prepared by someone who has really done all the homework. And so that was a real treat. I mean, he made things, the things that I knew I liked, he made were so good. And then, I tried stuff that I didn't even know I liked or didn't like in the past, and he made it taste good. Like, I don't like salmon, for example, and I ate a whole little salmon fillet one night because he did such a good job of cooking it and seasoning it that it didn't taste like rotten fish. So, yay for Connor. And our fearless captain, Pacome. Pacome is quite the character. He's, like I said, he's French descent, but was actually born in Kenya. Has traveled to a lot of different places in the world. He's been living in the Caribbean for the last 5 years or so. Only 23, but very responsible. Knew a lot about the area. Had really good advice on what to see and where to go. also had a huge ego. So if he's listening right now, you weren't that great. No, I'm just kidding. And we just all really got along with both Connor and Pacome. And from what I understand, that's not always the case. Like, you know, you've got these two people who are trying to run their boat and make everything work well and feed you and all that. And so it could be a different sort of relationship. But for us, they were just like, yeah, they're the ones doing the work, but they're also having fun with us and are, you know, they joined in and went on adventures with us when it worked for the schedule and had some downtime with us and things like that. Yeah, who's driving? So the cool thing about the boat is it did have an autopilot. So it basically has a Garmin GPS system and, you know, Waze for boats or Google Maps for boats. And he could just put in a destination and it would head there. Obviously, once you're close, you need to manually drive. But for the long sails, he could step away from the boat, from the captain's area for a little while and not have to worry about anything bad happen. And then that night we had a little concert again. Like I said, the guitar held up really well. I was not too worried because this guitar is the first one I was streaming with, and it's not natural wood. It's part of it's engineered lumber, and so that can manage the humidity changes and temperature changes a lot more gracefully than my main guitar would have. So very happy I brought it. Got to play quite a few times. Got to practice some things that I normally wouldn't have time to practice, and just had a really good time with it. So after that night, like I said, the first night we got to St. Kitts, we anchored and just kind of hung out. Then the second day, we went into port, and the boat stayed at port all day, and they did some cleaning and, you know, maintenance, and we went on our tour that I was talking about, the tour of the whole island. So this was one of our first stops at just a big lookout, and the cool thing from this is on one side you have the Caribbean Ocean, and on the other side you have the Atlantic Ocean. And so there aren't many places in the world where you can see two oceans at once. And there is a spot, I guess, on St. Kitts where you can actually stand 1 foot in the Caribbean Ocean, 1 foot in the Atlantic. So I did not get to make that, but it was pretty cool. Here's one of the things we saw. One of the things we saw on St. Kitts was a lot of really old trees. So this was one of them. It's probably a couple hundred years old, and the folks just let it grow. You know, it's right next to a building, but there's no stopping it, which I thought was cool. I mean, obviously they've done some maintenance on it, but it's still alive and growing. And then this was kind of an unfortunate spot we stopped. Not unfortunate for us, but so this place is called Bloody Point. So what happened with a lot of these Caribbean islands is, you know, the Spanish and the British and the French to some extent, all once the lane was created, the shipping lane was created, they all sent ships there and basically conquered any of the indigenous people, either conquering them or running them off to smaller islands or just outright killing them. And so what happened here is actually the French and the English teamed up, even though they were fighting each other. They teamed up to massacre the indigenous population. And this is an outlet that runs, there's no water there now, or if there is, it's a really small trickle. But when it rains, this fills up with water. And this existed at the time. And and there were so many bodies that they piled at the top of this hill where the battle occurred that this ran red for 3 days. So pretty crazy. And, I wonder a lot about what those indigenous people were like and sort of all of that stuff. Oh, yeah, hi-fi, no problem. This will be up. So since none of this is music, I'll keep the VOD up. Well, I've been keeping my VODs up anyway. But if you want to check it out later, hi-fi, feel free. So yeah, this marked an actual big tragedy in the history of the island, but they time moves on. So this is actually this is real paintings done by the original people. The original humans on this island. And they're apparently fertility markers. So this is a fertility rock. And I guess if you go up and touch it or kiss it, you'll be more fertile. No one in our group wanted that or needed that, so we just took pictures from the fan. But yeah, they dated this back to 2200 BC, I think it says. And this same tribe or group of people were the ones that greeted the European settlers. So I told you that a lot of the islands have invasive species problems. Well, on St. Kitts, it's monkeys. They have a huge monkey population, and they're not native to the island, but people try to make the best of it. So this was, there's a young man who came up with a monkey, and we could get a picture taken with a monkey for $10. So we got actually 3 or 4 pictures, but this is the best one with it on Heather's head. Then the monkey is wearing a diaper, so you don't have to worry about it pooping on you or peeing on you. And he was a cute little fellow. The next place we went was an estate that really started right when the island was settled by the Europeans in the 1600s. So they originally used the island for sugarcane. And what they would do is what they actually did was they'd bring slaves from Africa over to be the labor for the sugarcane production. And so this was one of the sites where they did a lot of it. So now it's privately owned, and it's being restored as a heritage site for the island. So right now there aren't a lot of things to see. There are some small things to see. There's actually a pretty cool water wheel that was there. That some of the infrastructure is still exists. A pretty cool aqueduct that's still up. And then behind it is a true rainforest. And so this isn't too far in, but we found this huge tree. And just to give you some scale, I'm 6'1", and I barely came up to the root ball of this thing. I can't imagine. I don't know how tall it is. And the forest actually has Tarzan-style vines growing on it. And they were actually used by some of the original people there and as a way of transportation. So true Tarzan swinging through the vines. So that was the sugar estate. After that, we went to a place that made batik, which I didn't know what batik was. So what batik is they take a cloth, like a cotton or linen, and use wax to cover part of it with a design, and then dye. And so the dye goes where there's no wax, but where there is wax, that stays the original color. And then they can layer multiple colors on that by doing this process. And so it makes some really cool designs. So here's an example of it over here to the left. But it's really cool. And this was also at a former estate that was purchased by the owner of the batik store, whatever, I don't know, I guess store is what you call it. And so a lot of this has beautiful gardens and a really cool tree, which I'm going to show you. So like I said, very like manicured, well maintained gardens with tropical flowers and cool furniture and cool sculptures and things like that. To get into it, you walk down this little stairway with the trellis covering and all the vines and flowers looking around or around you. And eventually, we came out to this huge tree. So this is the oldest tree on the island. It's 400 years old. I think it's 20-some feet in diameter. It's huge. It's hard to get a scale for how big it really is, but, this doesn't even show the whole canopy. It's just gigantic. So the 400-year-old tree gives out advice. Apparently it's named Sammy. He says to stand tall and proud, go out on a limb, remember your roots, drink plenty of water, be content with your natural beauty, and enjoy the view. So yeah, good advice in the Caribbean, especially the drinking water part. Speaking of which, and so, a circumference of 23 feet. And the canopy covers 2/3 of an acre. It's one of the largest of its kind in the Western Hemisphere. So it's over 400 years old. It's believed to have been brought here by the indigenous Carib Indians, the descendants of whom originally came here from South America. The trunk is a circumference of 23 feet. The canopy covers 2/3 of an acre. Chief Tegerman, the head of the Carib tribes in the region, had his headquarters where this building is, on this land. And like I said, it was a manor, and the owner of the batik prop store bought it and has been restoring it. So really cool. Glad to see they're taking care of this. It'd be awesome for it to live another 400 years. So after that, the third place we went was a fort. And I showed some pictures of this last time too. It's way up on the top of a mountain. And even after you go as far as you can with a car, there's still a huge climb to actually get to the fort. And these are the original steps that were put in. I'm not sure why they did these long form stairs. I'm sure there was some reason. But that was a trek, let me tell you. But it was worth it. It's a very cool old fort. Still has like the cannons and a lot of the other stuff in it. Epic views and some cool history. So there was like I don't remember how long, not very long, but a short movie you could go watch that Heather and I watched, and it just talked about how it came to be. It took over 100 years to completely build. And again, it was built mostly with slave labor that was brought over from Africa. So just some spectacular views. You can see why they chose this as a fort, because you have great visibility into the bay here, and this settlement. So you can keep an eye on your peeps and attack anyone that's coming after you. So this is just a picture of the whole fort structure from one of the corners. That picture, the previous picture, was taken actually right here, where you can see this part of a cannon. So this just kind of shows the view behind you. And then up here, there's another forward station where they had more cannons. I'm assuming this is to prevent people from rushing the fort, as well as give some visibility into this part of the water. And as you can see, well, like I was saying, you can see a lot from this on a clear day. So it was too cloudy for us to see a whole lot, but you can see the town and its anchorage area, which, as this says, was the main British town at the time. And beyond, you can see Saba, which is where we came from, and St. Martin, as well as St. Eustatius, which we didn't go to. But we couldn't see either St. Martin or St. Bartholomew because it was too cloudy. I think it would have to be a pretty clear day to see that far. But it is pretty cool to think, like, one of the really neat things I found about being on the water is seeing something really, really far away that normally you wouldn't be able to, just because there's always some sort of obstruction in front of you. Oh, good. I'm glad you guys are enjoying this. I was worried I was going to bore everyone to sleep. So thank you. So, you know, this is probably 40 or 50 miles away, and you can just see it. It's pretty wild when you think about it. Yay, Kim. So here's just a panoramic view of what we could see when we're basically at the highest point. Again, this is the town. Here you can see part of that island, but it's pretty obscured by the clouds already, and none of the other ones. Well, you wouldn't be able to see them from that vantage point anyway. But and then I had to get this picture taken, because this is basically the highest point that you can go and look out, and it's just open. You know, no OSHA, no beware of fall signs. You can just stand there and look out at everything, and it was pretty freaking cool. So I had to do the little "I'm the king of the world" pose. Is it a good sandwich, though, Soggy? That makes it worth it. So I don't know that I mentioned this at the beginning, but this fort was British owned and run. And so all the things had the seal on it, which I'm assuming is like the British Royal Navy seal or something. And everything for the most part is either being restored or being left untouched, because this fort is a World Heritage Organization site, which means it has a special designation and nobody can modernize it or do anything to mess with it. It really stays the way it was when it was designated. Yeah, it was pretty cool. One more shot of the view. Again, on a clear day, you might be able to see some of the islands over here, but it was too cloudy on the day we were there. So then we went inside and looked around a little bit. They had So one of the things that's still in place is the old bakehouse. So you got, I can't remember if it was 1 or 2 loaves of bread as part of your rations. And there were 2 big brick wood-fired ovens in here where they cooked everything. And I can't imagine how hot that was, because it was hot. You know, we were just standing there and it was hot. And then you have a huge fire. It'd be crazy. So after that, we went to a restaurant that was right on the beach. I think I have a picture of the view in a minute here. And we saw some mongoose. So we saw some mongooses. One of the things I learned on this trip is that the plural of mongoose is mongooses. It's not mongeese. And that a group of mongooses can be called a number of things. It can be called a pack, a mob, a group. I can't remember the other ones. Mostly we gravitated towards the mob, you know, a bunch of gangster mongooses demanding their tribute payments from the other animals. So yeah, the place we went to again was this little, I don't want to call it a hole in the wall, but it was like a little, just this little restaurant shack thing with a bar right on the beach. And again, somebody from Wisconsin was there not that long before us, Brian and Tamara. And they brought a license plate and hung it up. And this was the one that had this sign. So you can see Green Bay, Wisconsin is 2,604 miles from where we are there. Canada is 20,060 miles. Newfoundland is apparently 3,400 kilometers. But see, I don't think it's pointing right to Canada, because Canada shouldn't be the opposite of Green Bay. But maybe they're not quite correct. And then monkeys, 20 feet. Which was kind of funny because we didn't see a ton of monkeys. Other than that one, we really didn't see any monkeys. We just saw the mongooses and other wildlife. So then when we got back, like I said, they were tidying up the ship while we were off doing our little adventure. And we got back, we had fancy towels, 2 swans, and a freshly made bed. And so then our sign said, "Welcome back aboard the Saw Daddy." So the next day, we were back on the move. So St. Kitts is right next to another island, like you could practically swim between them, I think, called Nevis. And so that next day we went to Nevis, which is right over here, and got to go on a beach. That was the only thing we really did in Nevis. We didn't go to any restaurants or we didn't have any kind of tour. We just hung out on the beach. But this is actually the Saw Daddy from the beach. So you can get another look at the catamaran. I suppose I could zoom in a little bit. Kind of see what she looks like. Yeah, that place in St. Kitts did have some of the best drinks and food. All our food was really good, though. I don't think any of the restaurants we went to, I would say, was bad. One of them was a little weird, the French one. We went to a French restaurant in St. Barth, and that one was a little, Frenchy, I guess is the best way to put it. So yeah, here's another picture of the boat and the beach. This beach was cool. A lot of interesting shells. One of the things a couple of the people were looking for was sea glass. So I didn't even know this was a thing. But apparently, glass that gets lost in the ocean or thrown into the ocean, like a bottle or something, if it breaks, that wave action slowly breaks it down. And so when it washes back up on shore somewhere, it's all smooth and kind of frosted and looks cool. And so they were collecting that. And it's, so one of the things that could be, one of the things on all of the beaches is you can't take any shells or coral or any kind of wildlife or anything like that with you when you leave. And that's a conservation thing. One, they don't want people taking live animals because that brings its own set of problems. But then even the shells that aren't occupied might be occupied later by another creature. So they don't want people taking them all. But the sea glass, since that's not natural, it's just from humans, you're free to take as much of that as you want. One more shot of the boat. Some of us were snorkeling or swimming off there. You could pretty much swim anytime we were stopped. Very few exceptions. And that was really good because it gets so hot. Even just getting in the water for 5 or 10 minutes and then getting back out, it would cool you down, and then being wet, having the wind blow on you would keep you cool for a little while. So that was definitely a strategy. And then this is a shell that Rob actually found on the beach, which I thought was pretty cool looking. But like I said, we couldn't take any of that back with us. We just had to look at it and photograph it and then put it back. One of the other things you could do is pick up starfish. And then the thing with the starfish is you can't take it out of the water. So you can lift it up to look at it, but if you take it out of the water, it dies. So you want to keep it submerged the whole time, and then it'll be safe. Like even if you take it out and put it back, it can't survive that. And then here's a picture of our sunset that day, with a shot of one of our fishing poles. So when we were cruising, we actually had 2 fishing poles out the back. So if we're going from island to island and in open water, we would try to catch fish. And we caught, I want to say, Kim, maybe you remember, I think it was like 7 fish altogether. We caught 1 mahi-mahi that we ate that was big enough to eat. Literally caught it at like 2 p.m. and had it for dinner that night. We caught a barracuda, which you can't eat. We caught another fish that turns out we could have eaten, but no one was 100% sure, and we didn't want to risk it, so we threw that one back. And then we caught a tuna that was too small to eat, another barracuda that was too small to eat, and then a shark. We had a shark on the line, but just before we pulled it in, it came off, which was okay because we were going to throw it back anyway. I mean, we weren't even sure how you deal with a shark on a boat like this. We would have needed a bigger boat, as the saying goes. But that was always fun whenever we'd get a hit on the line while we were sailing, because a lot of times in the sailing, it was structured so that people would be either napping or just laying around. That's when I listened to a lot of my audiobooks. And so I wouldn't say it was boring, but it was nice to have something exciting happen while we were doing it. And even on the easy, quote unquote, easy sails, in open water, you're still going up and down a lot. So it's not like you can play cards or do some things like that to pass the time. So it was always fun to get one on the line. And Connor was our fisherman. He would reel them in. And then he did an awesome job. The one we did eat, basically brought it on, filleted it right there, and threw the remains back in the sea all in like 2 minutes. It was pretty wild. So this is our view out the hatch the next day. Then we are now in. Let's see. Where'd we go after St. Kitts? No, not Barbuda. St. John's, maybe it was. And so one of the things Heather would do is try to take a picture outside our hatch in the morning so we kind of could chronicle where we were. And so this is the first of those that I grabbed. I think there are more in the... So I went through like 1,000 pictures last night, and I'm sure I missed some that should have got caught, but... Oh, yeah. So this is a little cove that we came on. This is Montserrat. I'm remembering now, Kim. It's Montserrat. So we're in this little cove here. So we're in here, and there's a wall to the right and a wall to the left surrounding this little area. And then there was the beach also too. So that big wall, if you're looking at this picture, the previous picture is on your right, and then there's a pretty sizable beach, and then another rock wall on the left. So it's a very protected little area. The water was super calm, and we actually had fun. We did a bonfire here one night. So we got here that first day. We did some swimming and some nail maintenance. So Pacome and I both, I had my nails done prior to leaving, and Pacome thought it was cool, but we didn't have any black on board, so he went with white, and we thought we were pretty cool. One other thing Pacome did at this location, which he did a couple times, was we tied off on a rock. So normally when you're anchored, the anchor is off the front of the boat, and you just kind of move with the boat, with the anchor as a pivot point. So you're always shifting around. You might turn around depending on how the wind is blowing you. You might do a full 360, but you certainly are moving a lot. So by tying this rope off on the rock, we stayed in one spot all night. So our back was always facing this location, basically, which was nice because then the boat's even more stable and relaxing. So yes, Kim had a baptism. So once we got anchored that next morning, we boated over to, first we did some swimming, and then we boated over to the port at Montserrat. And some of us, so this is a look back at where our boat is. Our boat is in this little cove here. You go around this rock, and there's a little cove here, and this is the rock wall that's on the other side. So some of us just went to the bar and relaxed for a little while, and some went on a tour. So I have pictures of the tour, but I didn't actually go on it, so I'm going to just make up stuff about this part. I did talk to Heather a little bit, so I know some of it. So one of the places they went was this Runaway Gout, and I'm not sure what this word is exactly, but it's like almost like a, I don't know. What's the word I'm looking for? Well, anyway, it's like this. It's a little aqueduct, I guess. And so this one is supposed to be enchanted or magical, and if you drink from it, you will return to Montserrat at some point. So if you drink from this burn, Montserrat, you will return. So the thing about Montserrat is in the late 1990s, they had some very significant volcanic eruptions. The volcano had been dormant for hundreds of years, and for whatever reason, it fired back up in the 90s, and it destroyed a large chunk of the island and really reduced the population because people left and never came back. And so now it's pretty small in terms of population, and there's actually still points on the island you can't go that are excluded, or they call it an exclusionary zone, where you're not allowed to go because it's still active. There's lava, sulfur, all that kind of fun stuff. So yeah, if you drink from this little stream here, it means you'll come back to Montserrat someday. Meanwhile, this was where I was with Kim. Another beautiful bar right on the water. They had a little area where you could sit here, and they had food, and then sort of behind where I'm taking the picture, there was a bar. Mixed, every bar we went to had frozen drinks and rum-based drinks and, all the things you would expect from a Caribbean bar. And this is a picture Heather took while she was on the tour. Just shows the island, and you can really see how sparsely populated it is compared to like St. Kitts. St. Kitts, in a low area like this was totally full. Most of it seemed to have some housing, where here it was much more sparse. And there's also still areas that are, they were never repaired after the volcano erupted, and subsequent, hurricanes and just general weather damage and all that sort of stuff were just still there in some of these zones. And this might have even been in a zone that you weren't allowed to go into for a long time. They've opened some of them up now because it's finally been dormant again and things have cooled off a bit. But yeah, there's just a lot of, they were forced to do a lot of change because of that. So then we came back to the beach for the night after that little adventure and had a bonfire here. A little sunset picture. So yeah, we had the bonfire here. It's hard to get good pictures, but Pacome put together a pretty good bonfire. Connor instead of having dinner on the boat that night, Connor actually brought some finger food out, and we had a picnic. He made these amazing buffalo wings that were really good. I can't even remember what else we had. And I tried to play some music, but one thing that's interesting about the Caribbean beaches is the sand is so sticky. And so it was like, even though I was sitting on a blanket, my guitar was never in the sand, it was still getting sand on it too much. So I just decided playing on the beach was too hard on it, and ended up taking it back. But had a great time. Cool bonfire, a lot of fun. Here's a pretty cool picture. Again, you can see the boat, and that's actually the bonfire right there. So then the next day, we headed from Montserrat to Antigua, and that was our first, our only fuel fill up. So here we are in the dock, waiting to clear customs, and then we head over to the service station and filling up. And like I said, it takes diesel. I don't know how large the fuel tank is, but it has two 55 horsepower diesel motors in it, so I'm sure it's a big fuel tank. And then this was the second time where we were off the boat for a while, and they did a bunch of cleaning. This one, so what was interesting about our trip is we did a 2-week cruise. Normally, a sort of standard cruise with this company is only 1 week. So normally this would have been the end of our trip. And so we were actually at a port where they had, it wasn't just Connor and Pacome cleaning everything. They actually had crew. And so the crew came on board, cleaned everything. We totally resupplied, got more food for the second week, got ice. Getting ice was always a priority for us. Like pretty much any time we were by an island, we had to go buy ice because you just go through so much of it. And we had 3 big Yeti coolers on the boat, and 2 of them had drinks in them, and 1 was just ice. And we would go through that in just a day or 2, it seemed like, the ice. Not all the drinks. So instead of being on the boat that day, then we actually went to a resort for the day and mainly just relaxed. We had some food, they had drinks, they had a nice beach, and we just chilled. So that was nice. It was nice not to be moving for a little while. But then when we came back, it's kind of hard to see in this picture, but there'll be some more. We ended up in the middle of their carnival parade. So each island in the Caribbean has their own carnival, usually around a date when either they abolished slavery or maybe became independent. But it's something specific to each island. So it's kind of like, think of it as like Mardi Gras meets the 4th of July, and it happens for a week. So they do all these parades, there's dancing, music, all that kind of stuff. And so we just happened upon the parade for that day. And one of the cool things about it is each carnival has like its own theme. So like colors and I don't know what else, for sure colors. And so this year on Antigua anyway, the blue was definitely one of the colors. And so a lot of people were dressed in blue hats, blue swim wear, things like that. And I guess as the night goes on, it's like any kind of crazy celebration, more of the clothes come off. But we were back on our boat by that time. But the other cool thing about them in their parade is some of the floats are just bars. So this is a shipping container on a truck, and it's just a bar. They were just handing out drinks, and I'm pretty sure they were free. And there were 3 of them. So here's a little bit closer picture. You can see they're just handing out drinks, and they're driving on the parade route. And I think that's a lot better than what we do here in the U.S. where we throw candy to children. I mean, I'm not against throwing the candy to children, but we should also be handing out liquor at all our little parades. And so I'm going to advocate for that anywhere I'm in charge of the parade. So that was pretty cool. Lots of people, lots of sound, lots of music, and a really good time. So then once they were done with all their cleaning, we got back on the boat. And did some sailing. So this is where I got to sail. So actually right about here is where Pacome asked me if I wanted to drive. And so I drove essentially between this rock and the island. It's harder than it looks, like driving most things, I would say. Like here I look like I know what I'm doing and I'm pretty calm. But then this picture, my hands are blurry because I'm moving so much. So at first there was a lot of back and forth and back and forth and back and forth because I had to basically compensate for the wind and the drift it was causing, even though we didn't have the sails up. And so I would set the boat heading a certain direction, and it would drift to my right as I was driving. So I had to keep turning left to correct it. And so Pacome helped me sort of get into more of a rhythm, so I wasn't just wildly overcorrecting one way and then overcorrecting the other way. So here he is saying, right. And so he has a little system where it's like hands, and each hand is sort of like a one section of the wheel here. So one piece of the pie, almost, if you want to think of it. So he'd say like one hand to the right, and so I'd move it one over to the right, and then two hands to the left, and I move it two to the left, and things like that. And we got a pretty good system going. And at that point he was pretty happy with his work. Like, oh yeah, looks like you're not going to hit the rock, so that's good. And so here, like I said, there's basically this is a GPS touchscreen, so you can see where the boat is at all times. You can see the land around you. You can actually see, it's a chart, so it's a sea chart, so you can see the depth of the water when you're in the water. And then over here, I never did get a really good picture of these. I wish I would have. One of these was your speed. So it looks like we're doing about 6 knots here. One is your wind speed and information about that. And then one was your heading. And then this little globe here is a old school compass. Oh, and then these are the controls. It actually was a lot like driving a tractor, Stuart. I'm not going to lie. These are the controls, the throttles for the 2 engines. Yeah, it reminded me a lot of driving, more like driving a combine, because it was big and unwieldy, and it didn't always do what you thought it would when you turn the wheel. Yeah, driving, not diving. So yeah, that was fun. Yeah, Kim, I'm so glad you stopped by. So if you come back to my page later, you'll be able to watch this again, or rewatch it if you want to pick up the rest. So have a good evening. Thank you for stopping over. All right. So here's Pacome, saying, "Oh, I'm such a great teacher." But he actually did say, I picked up on things pretty quickly, so I appreciated that. So then we found another little cove for the night, and that night, after dinner, Pacome brought out the chart and kind of went through everywhere we were going to go in Antigua, and then he brought out a bigger chart, and we looked at the other islands we were going to go to. So that was fun. Cool to see how that all works and get a better sense of where we'd been and where we were going, that you can't really get when you're on your phone. Because even though I actually downloaded an offline Google map of the Caribbean islands we were going to, which was cool, but also just, I don't know, it's different when it's on a map, on a real paper map on a table. So this was our view that day. This was one of the days we got our inflatable out. We ended up naming her Buffy, for sort of in honor of Jimmy Buffett, and because all boats are female, so it couldn't be Jimmy. It was originally going to be Jimmy, but all boats are female, so it had to be Buffy. So this is our transgendered inflatable raft. We tie this on the boat, and just hang out. And it was really cool. And this location is where I had some awesome acoustics. So I actually spent the afternoon just practicing up on the up top on the boat, basically above the eating area. And after a while, I started playing songs. And what the people that were, the rest of the group was hanging out down here in the water in Buffy, and they said the acoustics were really cool because it would reverberate off the rocks here and made it sound like I was in a theater or I was amplified. So that was pretty neat. So, I don't have a picture. Another place we went that I didn't grab a picture of on Antigua was a shipwreck. That was pretty cool. But we didn't stay there super long because there's like a resort there, and they had jet skis you could rent, and the jet skiers were being morons and like driving right by us and like stirring up all the silt. So it wasn't really good viewing for the shipwreck, but it was cool, and I did snorkel by it for a while. So this is our view out that next morning after the concert and having Buffy. It was raining, which it happened quite a bit, off and on. Never really bothered anybody. We only had one day where it was gray most of the day. Most of the time it was sunny most of the day and maybe be gray for part of it. So from Antigua, we sailed to Barbuda. And now the one thing about Barbuda that's way different than any of the other islands is it's very flat. There really aren't the mountains like there are in all the other Caribbean islands we went to. Here's a sunset for that day. I liked this picture just because of how it shows the reflection off the chrome and the way it's out of focus up here. I thought it looked cool. So many beautiful sunsets. That's another really cool thing about being on the ocean is watching the sun go down not around any land. It's like the ocean is eating it or something. It's going to boil. It's pretty cool. So, excuse me. So yeah, we got to Barbuda that night, or that late afternoon, and then the next morning, we got up and did some swimming, and went to the beach here. So this beach is 7 miles long. It takes up a whole chunk of the island. It's really cool, and it has veins of pink sand in it, which me being colorblind didn't work for me so much, but everyone else said it looked pretty cool. Yes, beaches are long. And so, but the other cool thing this had was a big coral reef, which is why we're kind of far away from the beach. So I went snorkeling for about an hour on this day, and I saw a big suckerfish, which I have some pictures of other ones to give you an idea of the size. It swam right up to me. And I kind of looked at it, and it looked at me, and then it went on its way. But that was cool. We also saw sea turtles here. Connor actually got some video. He had a waterproof GoPro that he would take with him when he snorkeled. And so he got some video of the sea turtle, which was neat. And, one thing I forgot to mention, at one of the other places, I can't remember what island it was. Oh, it was Montserrat. I actually saw a barracuda right by me when I was snorkeling. That was a little more scary. They have big teeth and that ugly underbite. So yeah, just to give you an idea, this is all beach. Beach. So what we did after swimming in the water, we went to there's only one. So Barbuda was hit by Hurricane Irma, I believe it was, in 2017, and they still haven't really recovered. There are only about 1,500 people that live on the island, and there's really only one city. There used to be, I want to say, 7,000. So a significant drop in the population there. And it's really just people that left when the hurricane came and then haven't come back for whatever reason. So the drive up here to where this picture was taken, it's on these unpaved roads with big potholes and just a lot of abandoned buildings. But then you'd see some buildings where they're, newly constructed for the people who are either coming back or stayed. But just a very remote feel to this island. It really felt like you were in a different time almost, even though they had like billboards for cell phones. So what we did for our onshore in Barbuda is we went to this really large sinkhole that is so deep and big it has its own tropical rainforest inside of it. So this was where we sort of started our walk. It wasn't a long walk, maybe a couple miles, but it was super hot. The terrain was not hilly, but it was definitely varied, a lot of rocks. There were a lot of bushes that would cut you or scrape you. They had thorns. So it was an adventure, to be sure. But before we started all that, we got some cool pictures. And so, like I said, Montserrat is very flat. Like, this is some of the only elevated land in the whole island. Most of it is just, everywhere you look is just flat to the water. We did see a few turtles on our trip. Our guide picked them up and said he was going to keep them as pets, but I think he was going to turn them into turtle soup, if I'm being honest. Also crabs. We saw quite a few crabs, which kind of surprised me. I didn't realize they would live that far from the water, but I guess they can. This is one of probably the biggest one we saw. We saw 3 or 4 of them that were smaller, like maybe more like baseball size, versus this is almost like a softball size one, or maybe a little bigger even than a softball. And then this is the rainforest. So this is all sinkhole here. The land just sunk down, and these trees grew up, and these trees are very tall. In fact, you can't even see the bottom. So I think this is as close as I got to being able to see the bottom. I think these are rocks right here. And here's a panoramic view of that. So like I said, it's vast. The end is right here, even though we're not at a very good angle to see it. And then it's got basically its own little ecosystem. And you could go down there. The group was pretty tired by the time we got here, and we knew we had to walk all the way back, so we didn't go down. But you can actually walk down to the floor of the sinkhole, And then I guess in the walls here around it, there are a bunch of caverns as well. So some pretty cool stuff. And then on our way back, so Montserrat, it was different than the other islands we went to in that we had to anchor quite a ways away before we could, and then we had to dinghy close because this is all a lagoon. It's not very, it's very shallow. So even our catamaran wouldn't make it through. So when we got back from our trip, our excursion to the sinkhole, the sun was setting, and we got some really cool pictures. So that's our boat right there. That's the Saw Daddy right there. And then over here, this was actually a resort. So this was a a full on resort like the one we went to in Antigua. But the hurricane in 2017 basically pushed it into the ocean. So like there were buildings that were half in the water, and they just never been touched since. So yeah, these are some of my favorite pictures that I got. And then what was really cool is we had an epic sunset, and then we had a really cool moonrise too. It was really hard to get pictures, so I don't think I included any in the slideshow here, but it was full moon, so we had the sun go down, and then the moon came up over the island shortly after that, which was cool to watch. It also kind of sucked because it really cut down on how many stars you could see. So that was kind of a bummer because I really liked, one of the things I loved to do on the whole trip was go up top in the area that's above the dining room area in the kitchen. There's a little seating area up there, and you could also lay down. So I would just lay on my back at night and look up at the stars and just watch the stars. We saw easily 24 shooting stars over the course of our 2 weeks. I think at one point we saw like 7 of them within a couple hours. So very cool that way. I was just a little bummed that it was the full moon because that definitely cut into some of the stars and seeing the Milky Way. We did do a couple of night sails. And on the first one, it was early in our cruise. And so for that one, we were actually able to see a lot. I saw the Milky Way really, like probably the most intense I've seen the Milky Way in real life, or at least in a long time. And a ton of stars. And so that was really, really cool. But I didn't get to do a ton of that. So this was actually one of the nights we did a night sail. And we left Barbuda at night and woke up in St. Bart's. So this was our look out our window the next morning. And these are those fish I was talking about. So that morning when we got up, we saw fish right away. And this is probably about the right size of the ones I saw too. So these are sucker fishes. They attach to sharks. Hey, Steamy. How's it going? So you can't see it from here, but right up here on the top of their head, they have like this flat area that has ridges on it. And those, I guess those attach to sharks, and then they feed off the shark. I'm sure you've seen that if you watched any documentaries on like sharks during Shark Week or whatever, that there are these different species of animals, fish, usually I think maybe some eels or something too, that attach themselves to sharks and whales and clean the other animal. Yes, like a lamprey. So this is similar. And that's what I saw the day before when I was snorkeling. One came right up to me. So this was our view at St. Bart's. And St. Bart's is like 180 degrees from Barbuda. So, like I was saying, Barbuda was really hit hard by the 2017 hurricane and hasn't recovered and is very sparsely populated. No real good infrastructure. Really, I guess primitive is maybe a word. St. Bart's is the opposite. St. Bart's is the Beverly Hills of the Caribbean. So everything's freshly painted. All the roads are nice. Everything's super expensive. We've got, you got your like Rolex and really expensive jewelry. Things like that are the norm. That's not to say you can't find some, shops that are more unique and not totally crazy on price, which we did find some. But for the most part, it was luxury goods and, $100 T-shirts. But still a beautiful location, which is why it's so popular, I'm sure. And St. Bart's, so most of the islands we had been to up until this point were British. Even if they had been independent, even if they're independent now, they were historically British islands. St. Bart's, like St. Martin, is not. So St. Bart's is French. And so everything was in French. Things were in Euro there. The culture was very French. There were French restaurants. We went to a French restaurant that night. And then we also found this bar. So Pacome actually lived on St. Bart's for a while with a girlfriend. And so he knew some of the places to go. And so we went to this bar, which is more of a place for not the tourists, but for the people who work on the island and live on the island, to go. And so that was fun to sort of hang out and see that after all the hoity-toity. And they've been avoiding progress since 1949. So we saw, this is another place where we saw sea turtles. So it's kind of hard to see, but that's the head of a sea turtle right there. And there's this shell. We saw a couple of more in Barbuda as well. One when we were going on the dinghy to the, before we went on the hike to the sinkhole, we saw a big one move, like it was right in front of us, so it had to get out of the way. And those things can go fast. I had no idea. They're really fast. There's a sea turtle. And so that night we ate at the French restaurant and then came back and stayed the night in the harbor there and woke up. So this is our wake up for that day, for the next day. Again, some clouds, but not a big deal. Some beautiful views. And if you see this big boat over here, so this is a ship that is owned by a Russian oligarch. It's called the Multiverse. And apparently, so it's a $275 million yacht. I'm not sure how much it even would cost to operate. That's just the cost to buy it. It has like 80 crew members. Yeah, it's called the Multiverse. This is a helicopter. You can see the tail of right here. It has like multiple big boats that live on it. A huge crane, a couple of huge cranes, actually, one on each side to bring the equipment in and out. A huge back, I don't know what you call it, on the aft side there where you load and unload things. The sugar scoop is what ours was called, but I don't know if it's called the same thing on a big yacht like this. But the craziest thing about this is apparently this is the boat that holds all his toys. This is his toy box. His actual yacht is even bigger, which I just find unbelievable. I don't know how many millions or billions that cost. So, what we did after this day is we went to, it's not really an island, it's more of a volcano. So we went to, it's called Ile Fourche, and it's, this is the inside of the volcano after it exploded. So you can kind of get a sense that this is round. So it's round and there's an opening. And so it's this huge bay that was formed when a volcano exploded many, many, many years ago. And we were going to go here to swim was our plan. We were going to spend the day here and sleep here. But then when we got there, there was a huge barracuda right under our boat. And everybody was like, maybe let's not swim here. So we actually turned around and went back to St. Bart's because it was only like, I want to say like a half-hour cruise or half-hour sail to get here. So we went back. But what was cool is on the way on this trip, we actually spotted a dolphin. I don't know if I didn't get a good picture of it, and Heather didn't get a good picture of it. I don't know if anyone did. We didn't get to see him for a very long time, but I saw the fin at first and thought it was a shark because, fin. But then Pacome saw it and corrected me, and then so the dolphin came up sort of on our side and just said hi quick and then took off. So that was really cool. But then we went back to St. Bart's, and we got to see this cool structure. So this is it the Rockefellers or the Vanderbilts? I can't remember now. I think it was the Rockefellers. So this was a building, a house, I guess you'd call it, a compound, designed by Frank Lloyd Wright for the Rockefellers. That is now abandoned because the descendants, the family members, can't agree on what to do with it or who gets to own it or what happens with it. So it's just been abandoned for years, I guess. And the bay we were in just happened to look up to it. So it's pretty cool. You could technically walk up to there, but it was a pretty long hike, and no one was really feeling like they wanted to do it. But we had this really great beach again. Beautiful water. So this, you can't zoom in very well, but this right here was all put up by the staff for the multiverse. No one ever used any of it, but they dutifully set it all up and made sure it was up to par if Mr. Oligarch wanted to come and use the beach. In fact, they even raked the sand underneath the canopy here so that it'd be all soft and no rocks. Because I'm sure the Russian oligarch doesn't have strong feet. So we spent the day there, got another epic sunset with some storms coming through. This is, I believe this is probably Ile Fourche. But it was cool how you could see the rain from a long ways away, hitting some of the islands, but then you'd be fine. And this was our view out the window the next morning. It was Pacome. But so one of the things I wanted to show is, so there was one of these on each side of the boat, one of these hatches, and in here is where the motors were for the propeller, and then also on this side was where the water filtering was. So this boat can make its own water, drinkable water from seawater. So it runs through. I don't know how they desalinate it, but they desalinate it, and then it runs through a bunch of filters. And so that's what we were drinking while we were on the boat. Doesn't make ice, though, so that's why we had to keep buying ice, but we at least would have water. And that's also what we used for our showers and, to wash dishes and for everything, except the toilets. The toilets actually ran on a saltwater system, so like with the drinking water, we tried to conserve it, but then, we didn't have to when we were going to the bathroom, at least. Here's another sea turtle. See his little head there. So this was our, so we're getting close to the end here. This is our last sail back to St. Martin. So we've completed the circuit, and you can see the crew is hard at work looking at their phones while the autopilot takes care of the sailing. And now we're back in St. Martin in Simpson Bay. So this was our last opportunity to get off the boat to swim. This water was pretty rough, so you had to really be on your toes. It wasn't just a relaxing swim, but we all got in just because. And then the next morning, we woke up, and this was our view. So after this, after hanging out in Simpson Bay for a while and having lunch, so the bay the port we were in, where we dock, is only accessible via a drawbridge. So we had to wait for the drawbridge to open. It only opens at like 5 p.m. and I think sometime in the morning. So we had to wait for that. And so we just hung out in Simpson Bay, and then we docked, and this was our view. So, like I said, our ship was named the Sawdaddy. Well, and it's actually called a boat. We did ask about that. So a ship there's a certain tonnage it has to weigh before it can be called a ship. So we were on a boat. It's a Saba 50 is the model number. So, all right. I need to take a quick break because I have to go to the bathroom. But I'll be right back, and we'll talk about the Yoda guy. So coming up, this cool guy who lives in St. Martin, who has a whole bunch of memorabilia from when he worked on The Empire Strikes Back and Highlander and a couple other movies. So I will talk about that in just a second.
Take a shower, put coffee on. Think about texting your friends, then you call your mom. Dream about swimming. Dream about swimming. Something in her smile makes you feel like the world's ending. Give her your all, but somehow she just keeps on taking. So you pack up, say I love you, and drive away. Listen to a podcast and wish that you hadn't stayed. Dream about swimming. Dream about swimming. Down.
Raiders. Welcome in. How's it going? How was your stream, Brad? Normally I'd play you a song, but we're going through pictures from my trip again. And we'll get back to that. So welcome in. I hope you had a great stream. If you're not following Brad, go do that now. He is an epic streamer of water. Birds that go like this. And so I'm a big fan. You should follow him. All right. So that was the sailing portion of the trip. After this, we got off. We spent one night at a resort / hotel, and then flew back. But before we did that, we got to spend a day back on St. Martin, so we got to see the Yoda guy. We were by his place the one day we went shopping, but he wasn't open. And so when we were back, he was open. So we had to take the chance to hang out with him. So he's a movie effects makeup guy, Nick Maley. And he worked on Superman, Highlander, Krull, and Star Wars. He was a key contributor on the Yoda puppet that was used in Empire Strikes Back, so he got the nickname That Yoda Guy. So here's some movies that he worked on: A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, Highlander, Superman, The Shining, Clash of Titans, Flash Gordon. And so he just has a ton of memorabilia and a little shop. So some of their memorabilia you get to see as you're walking into the place. It's hard to see, but that's a little gremlin. And then a full-sized stormtrooper outfit. So when you first walk in, he's got there's a picture kind of it at the end here, but he's got just a real small shopping area where he has like pictures, other memorabilia that he's selling or that is for sale. But he also has a museum area you can walk through where he's got a bunch of the memorabilia that he doesn't want to sell. It's his that he likes. So here's an example. It's a concept figurine of a Tauntaun. And in the back here is a blaster used by the Jawas. They weren't in it, he's got a bunch of little things written about him. So he talks about how they weren't Jawas weren't, they're scroungers, so they had a lot of leeway on how they designed their blasters because it was just supposed to be junk that they picked up along the way. Here's another picture of that same exhibit. He's got a Wicket figurine here. I don't think this is full size, but maybe. Hard to tell. And then, like I said, he worked on the Highlander movie, the first one, the only one that mattered. So he had some memorabilia from that, including, so one of the things he has is pages of script from some of the movies he's worked on, including A New Hope and Highlander. So what this is a first draft of Star Wars. And so it's interesting. I'm not going to try to read it all to you, but what's really interesting about it is this doesn't really match Star Wars at all. Like, Tatooine is called Ogana. Jedi don't exist. They're called Dai Nogas. And they're bodyguards to a king. And Luke is not Luke. He's Justin Valor. So Luke Skywalker could have been Justin Valor. So he's got this first draft, and then he actually has 3 drafts. So first 3 drafts. So now it's sort of getting better. We have Luke Starkiller as our hero. This time Tatooine's called Utapau. And the Empire is a group of traitor barons. And the roll-in text was these 3 really long paragraphs. So the scrolling piece, the scrolly bits. Then here's the third draft. Luke is still called Starkiller, but the Jedi have become Jedi Knights, and the Emperor is mentioned for the first time. And the Millennium Falcon exists, but it's just referred to as the pirate starship. So as you can see, that was in August of 75, and the movie came out in 77. So, Brad, thank you for that gift sub, Brad. Appreciate you. One of the other really cool things he has are all these original pages of Star Wars script. So this is actual script from A New Hope. I'm sure you do. I might know what it is. So this is the actual script. He was able to get this from somebody who worked on the movie. And so he's assembled various pages, and then he'll put pictures that go along with it. Sometimes a card, and it has a certificate of authenticity. So this one came from a former managing director at 20th Century Fox. So this one is still the 4th draft, a revised 4th draft. So I don't know if it's what they actually used, but it's a version. And so this is where this one is cool, because it's where Ben says these are not the droids you're looking for. And so, like I said, he had stuff for sale. And so if you think back to when I showed the whole group, Todd and Jennifer, Todd bought one of these that is the page is the scene in the cantina right after this scene where they're talking, Han and Luke, Obi-Wan and Luke talk to Han about their ship, about using the Millennium Falcon. He tells him to meet him at the hangar bay, and then Guido stops Han before he can leave. And so it's that dialogue that Guido and Han have as he's sitting there, and Han eventually shoots him. But what was really funny is it goes right up until so the line before the shooting, Guido says, "I've been waiting for this for a long time," and Han goes, "Yes, I bet you have," and then shoots him. Well, the page cut off with this continued right after Han says, "Yes, I bet you have." So we don't get the actual next page where it would have said if Han shot first or not, but anyone who's a Star Wars fan knows that Han shot first. Here's another cool thing he had. This is a sand person, full garb, which I thought was really cool. He also got some like promotional stuff because of his association with Star Wars when the new trilogy came out. So he has stuff from The Force Awakens. Another cool thing he had was a bunch of these storyboards And these, again, are authentic. So this is one for The Empire Strikes Back, just showing the battle in Hoth with the AT-ATs and the fight. So this shows they go in order here. So this is the fight. Here's after Luke gets shot down. Here they're showing the concept of them circling the AT-ATs to bring them down. And eventually they would fall. And here's the crash. So it really shows, what they were thinking about, and these were shots that they wanted to capture in the movie. Some other cool stuff. Some concept drawings of Boba Fett before, like what his helmet is exactly going to look like, what his outfit's going to look like. He's got a different backpack than ultimately came on, but you can see they have this telescope piece that is a part of his helmet was in all of these designs. And this design seems pretty close to the final. They always had this sort of T-shaped visor thing going on. So that's cool. Some more things for Boba Fett. Some of this stuff probably came from The Mandalorian. Here's some more stuff on how his backpack is going to look and all of this. So this is all legit stuff. This is what they actually used in The Empire Strikes Back when they were creating the character. And then he had a full-sized Han in carbonite. Not for sale. Just too bad. Because I think it'd look really cool behind me when I'm playing. But we'll have to wait. One of the other things he had a lot of are these face moldings. So when you're, whenever you're in a movie where you have to wear a prosthetic of any kind, or in the case of Han's carbonite, they needed to make an exact likeness of him. You maybe have seen it before on shows about the making of movies, but they take a face print of you. With, I don't know what you call it, not paper mache, but with like, this stuff. And so he has collected a lot of those over the years. He had like, ones from the Highlander movies. So he had Sean Connery. He had some weird ones. He had some historical ones. So what they did before, like photographs, is they take these and then use them for statues or artwork, drawings, things like that. So he actually had some historical ones too. I think he had Bach. I can't remember who else. Then here's Guido. He worked on Guido and some of the other aliens that were in the cantina. For that cantina scene that Todd ended up buying the script page from. This is kind of a cool picture of the people who did the work with their monsters or creatures. And this is the Yoda guy right here. Some more stuff from the cantina scene. This was interesting. So here's some early concept art for Yoda. This is kind of creepy Yoda. I'm not sure I'm a fan. Or Santa. I don't know if I'm down with Santa Yoda. Also kind of creepy. Something weird about his smile in these pictures. This one's a little more like real Yoda, but his face just isn't quite right. But that was some of the early concepts. And there's the Yoda we know and love, along with Grogu. So I believe this is one of the actual puppets that was used in Empire Strikes Back that he has now. And if it's not, it's a perfect replica because he designed it. So one of the stories he told us is they had a couple of different Yodas they used on set, and one of them was had a bunch of remote control like movements it could do, which was great for scenes where it needed that, but it was also very unreliable because of all those moving parts and servos and little motors and things. So they asked him to design like a stripped down version that was more of a puppet, like a hand-controlled puppet. And so that's what he did. And that's the Yoda you see in a lot of the scenes, especially if it's not a close-up or where he's talking or doing a lot of looking around, because this one was so simple, it worked all the time. So they used it more on set than the fancy one. And so here he is. This is the area where you can buy things. So these are all for sale. Various movies. I think this is Pirates of the Caribbean behind him. And then he's got the Yoda things centered. And yeah, just a great time. Really glad I got to meet him. Then after that, we had dinner at a cool little bar. And that was one of the cool things. We found a number of these on our trip where they're just small establishments, but they've got, you know, whether it's the owner is there or he just hires really good people, she hires really good people. We had a lot of fun at different eating establishments, just talking to people, learning more about, you know, day-to-day life on the island and things like that. And then for Soggy, I had to get a picture of the Soggy Dollar Bar. What's really funny is the day after I showed this the first time, Pacome actually posted an Instagram picture from this bar. So we didn't go in it when we were here, but it does exist. So Soggy, if you ever get down to St. Martin, you got to check it out. And then the last thing we did the day before we left is we all got tattoos. So this is Pacome getting his. We all got, well, 4 of us got them, I should say. Kristen, Pacome, me, and Heather got them. And so we all got the same design that Heather made. It's on it's a sailboat she drew. And there's Kristen with hers. Here's mine. And Heather and I put the little C and H on it, on ours, to sort of commemorate it. And then here's Heather's. Then after we got that, I saw the sign at the bar when we were walking to get a taxi to go back to our hotel. And it's a husband daycare center sponsored by Smirnoff. If you want to go shopping, just leave your husband here. The standard package includes 1 pint, but the deluxe package is a double whiskey. Happy hours from 5 to 7. So I feel like there are some folks in the chat occasionally that would benefit from this, Modfather, if you're still here. Oh, you don't drink, though. We'll have to find something else to entertain you. And then as we were leaving, we had to get a picture of the traffic man. We don't know why he only has 1 arm or why he's got his own statue, but he was in a big traffic circle on St. Martin, so obviously you need to take a picture of that. And then we're on the plane, headed back home. So that wraps it up. That is our trip. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I had fun going through the pictures and telling you guys about stuff. If you have any questions, feel free to throw them in chat, or if you think of them later, ask me on Discord. I'm not going to stay on a whole lot longer. All this talking has made my throat pretty sore. But I will give folks a few minutes. If they did have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Bottom line is I had a blast. It was so much fun. It was really cool to go to all these different islands and to sail. Like, one of the coolest parts of it was when we were sailing, like, not even all of our sails where we went from island to island were we in true open water, but there were a few times where you could literally do a 360 and not see anything but water. And that was pretty cool. After that first day, I never really had problems with motion sickness or seasickness. A couple times I took some preventative Dramamine, and certainly right after that throwing up experience. But after that, towards the end, I didn't worry about it too much. And the seas were mostly calm, really. I'm sure if they had been rougher, I might have kept taking the medicine, but for the most part, and one of the reasons we didn't even have the main sail up very much was because we didn't have a lot of wind. So we had pretty calm weather and calm seas. But if there aren't any questions at the moment, I think we will find someone to raid. This went a little faster than I thought it would, but not by much. But yeah, my throat is sore, so I don't think I feel up to doing any music. Let's see who's on, though. Oh, Corey Clark's having a birthday stream. That'd be good. Delta Carbs is on. Bob's on. Davey's on. Oh, LG. Oh, Luke's on. We got a lot. Lots of options here. Let's see how long Luke's been playing. Only a couple hours. So let's raid LJP Music, because I don't know if we've ever raided him before. He is actually the person who's going to help me record my songs. So now that I'm back, I need to actually hopefully work on that this weekend and record some vocals for Life Among the Mighty and send them to him. I have already sent him some guitar track for it. So we're going to go there. Let's get the raid and the sub raids out. Yeah, I'm pretty hyped about it, Brad. I'm excited to have some music out on Spotify. So copy those raid calls. Thank you, everyone. Oh, hey, DJ. Thanks for stopping by. I want to thank everyone for hanging out and listening to me blab for 2.5 hours. I hope you enjoyed it. Again, I'm happy if anyone has questions, hit me up on Discord. If you want to talk about it more, I'd be happy to talk about it. If anyone's thinking about going there, for sure, I'd be happy to talk about it. Yeah. Thank you to everyone for hanging out. Thank you to Hi-Fi, Modfather, and Jerry for their subs. Although I think Jerry got his from Brad, so thank you to Brad. Thank you, Brad, for the raid. Appreciate you. I will be back Thursday night, starting at the same time, but I will go 3 hours. So we'll go to 11:30 Eastern, starting at 8:30. And I hope to see you then. We'll play some music, and Brad will be one sub away from marbles, and maybe we'll do some marbles. I know, a rate of 6. It's huge. All right. Let me start the raid here. Whoops. Copy pasted the wrong thing. Oh, cool. Well, happy early birthday, DJ. I hope you have a great one. And maybe I'll see you Thursday and I can sing you happy birthday then. All right, thanks again to everyone who hung out. I hope to see you on Thursday. And fair winds and safe sailing until then. Remember, if you can't be good, then be good at it.
Some say